Okay, so hello YouTube and welcome to my front room. You are currently on my coffee table. Brilliant stuff. So today what I want to do is I'm actually making a series of videos reviewing Dust Warfare, because I think this is a great little set of rules. It's very exciting, and it comes from a background that, as I said in my previous video, I've been very interested in for a couple of years now. And it wasn't until my good friend Templars Crusade 01 piped up that he was quite interested in it as well that I actually bit the bullet and went for it. So this is all I've got so far, is this for Dust, but I've also ordered a whole load of models to try out, but they haven't arrived yet. So I'm currently feeling a little bit lost because I want some models to play with. But anyway, I'm talking about this anyway. So I've done a review just saying about my initial thoughts about when I first opened the book, picked it up from the letterbox and saw what happened. So, well, had a quick look through and looked at what it was all about. So I want to talk to you about what it actually is in a bit more detail rather than just, oh my god, this is amazing because it's really shiny. So, first of all, I want to say the review that I've done and that I've written, I've actually taken from a fella on the Clapham Wargamers Guild forum, and his username is Raziel, I think. But basically I tried to write my own set of notes about this and they weren't very good, I have to admit, so I looked around online, saw what I could find, and I found this review, and it was a stunningly written review, so I'm just going to use it. I've edited it and played around with it a bit so it has a bit of a personal edge. But I just want to say, cheers dude, I have borrowed your review and I'm using it for this one because it is so good, and I think all you guys out there should be hearing about this. Okay? So, first of all, he goes on to say, what is it? So, Dust Warfare is a miniatures game. It's a tabletop miniatures game in which you use heroic scale 28mm miniatures. So, to model makers out there, that's 1/48 scale. To wargamers out there, it's pretty similar to Games Workshop scale, if not just a tiny bit bigger. Okay, it's set in an alternate World War II universe with walkers and super tanks alongside veteran soldiers, and the whole game has actually been developed by Andy Chambers. Now the interesting thing about that is that Andy Chambers worked on the Starship Troopers miniatures game from Mongoose Publishing. And this set of rules shares quite a lot of similarities to that game. He used to work on 2nd edition 40k, and there's a lot of similarities to all the rules that Andy writes to 2nd edition 40k. Starship Troopers was pretty much 2nd edition 40k with just a few changes. But anyway, so the quick overview of the whole thing, like in 2 minutes, is that it's got a simple rules mechanic for tabletop gaming that's very quick to play. Each unit, if we go round to a section with a unit, so each unit has only got 3 stats. Okay, so you also in the game use pre-measuring, so you're allowed to pre-measure so that you can avoid arguments and wasting time with arguments and things like that, or slowing game turns down. So at tournaments you can have really quick, energetic games. I probably won't be playing this at tournament level because that's just not what I'm into. Maybe I will, I don't know. I did a few tournaments for Starship Troopers and Confrontation. I've done 1 or 2 for some Games Workshop ones, but those are always a little bit too hardcore for me. So maybe I will, maybe I won't. I'll talk to the local gaming club, see what they think about it, and maybe we can sort something out. Anyway, so it also uses a suppression mechanic, so the idea of suppressing units so that they can't move or that they don't get as many actions in a turn. Okay. There's also a reaction mechanic, which was in Starship Troopers as well. So when someone shoots or moves near you or assaults you or something like that, you can react to that. So how in Warhammer Fantasy you get the option of standing and shooting when someone charges you, it's a bit like that. Okay. It also has, quite interestingly, similar to Starship Troopers once again, it has a battle scenario generator. So each player bids to see what scenario they want to play. So I can't remember where that actually has gone, but I will find that for when I talk about that in more detail. Okay. As you can see here, the rulebook, it has got stats for the Axis, and it also has stats for the Allies. So what that means is everything you need to start playing is in here. The only thing that is not in here is the stats for the SSU, the Sino-Soviet Union, which is the third faction for Dust. Okay, that will come later. It's in a campaign book that's upcoming called the Zverograd, Operation Zverograd. Okay. The whole game uses a army building system based on platoons. So, for example, here is an assault platoon, and it tells you what you need in that platoon, and it means that people end up with balanced armies. You can't go for an entire tank army, you can't go for a mechanised army, you can't go for an army just filled with nothing but Axis apes. You can do it with zombies, but you have to pay the points for them, and they're not necessarily going to be the most effective unit. Okay? The whole game uses a I go, you go system. So basically, you, just like in a similar way to 40k and stuff like that, it's you go, I go, you go, I go. However, you have initiative, and initiative is controlled by the losing player. So the person who rolls the least dice or has the least units will generally get to go first. Okay, I'll talk about that in another video as well, in a little bit. So the whole game is fully compatible with Dust Tactics. Okay, so Dust Warfare, as I said, is the tabletop miniatures wargame version of Dust Tactics. So Dust Tactics is a grid-based board game in which you use wargaming miniatures to play a board wargame. Okay, so it's confined to a board. Things are much easier because you don't have loose measurements. However, Dust Warfare, they've simplified it in a beautiful way so that there's less arguments about measurements, things like that. It's very, very clear about things like that. You can tell it's been written with tournament gaming in mind to avoid tournament arguments. Okay, so that's the quick overview. I hope that's made sense, guys. If you have any questions, leave a comment, okay? But I'm going to move on for the strange break there, guys, but the camera knocked itself out. So I didn't have enough time left on the memory, so I've just sorted that out. But anyway, I was about to start talking about background. So I spoke a little bit about the background before, but it wasn't very clear in my last video, so I'm going to talk about it again. And in this way, I think it'll be a bit better. Okay, so this is taken from the review that I found online. Okay. So, where do I start? So, Dust is set on a parallel Earth, so our Earth, and the date is 1947. World War II is still raging. This time, the Axis have succeeded with Operation Valkyrie and have purged the Axis ranks of Nazis. So, in 1944, Hitler gets assassinated, and Field Marshal Rommel, I think, takes command. I think there's someone else who takes command, actually, of the whole Axis force. But anyway, the Axis has now been joined by Japan as a vassal. The Axis span the globe and are the most advanced faction, developing the mysterious VK element. And it's the VK element that powers their huge Walker tanks. Their top secret research wing has moved on to special projects such as reanimating the dead and mind-controlling guerrillas to fight for them. So that sounds a little bit strange, guys, but bear with me, okay? It's a really, really cool background. So, the Allies, commanded by America, are fighting for their very existence as they play catch-up with the VK research whilst being attacked on all sides by the Axis and the SSU. Whilst covering a much larger global area than the other two powers, they are widely distributed and vulnerable to attacks. The Allies have recently cracked phaser research, and that allows them to launch balls of plasma at their enemies to vaporise them. The Allies favour flexible units capable of switching roles. Okay. The Sino-Soviet Union is the last world power, formed under Stalin through a union with China, which was under siege from Japan. The SSU has been bloodied by the Axis invasion from the west, but seeks to repel and ultimately conquer their various enemies. They have recently launched an assault into Alaska as well. They have recently launched an assault into Alaska as well as preparing for a counterattack in Europe. The SSU prefer soldiers and air power, but are also developing their own VK tanks. So I've actually seen a couple of previews of some kind of smaller walkers that seem quite chunky anyway, and I think they might be one-man walkers, I'm not sure, like exo armour suits. So almost like a 40k dreadnought, but I'm not really sure. Okay, anyway, in my last video I spoke about first impressions, but this time I want to speak in more detail about first impressions and why I think certain things are important. So the rulebook, as you can see, is quite slim. I don't think that's necessarily a negative thing, okay, to be honest, because this book, as you can see, just from flicking through, I've owned this for a day, I can already sort of find where things are, okay. Massive rule books I can find a little bit daunting, so this is quite cool for that, okay. It's hardback, it's full colour, every single page is in colour, okay. It's full of diagrams. So if I open a random page, there's a diagram. I open another random page, we have pictures, not necessarily diagrams, but pictures, diagram. Okay, so that's what I want to bring on to as well. A point I want to bring up is that there's a lot of pictures and imagery in this book to keep you interested in the whole world of Dust. Okay, there's not a double page spread in this book that hasn't got some kind of imagery on it. And I think someone must have thought about that, they must have done. I can imagine a graphic designer going through this and thinking about where he can put images to make things fit in nicely, how to use little things to make it look and feel like a World War II style document. And I really, really like that. A lot of time and consideration has come into the production quality for this, and I'm really, really impressed. Okay, but anyway, it's got a small background section at the front, which is about 8 pages, so it starts here and it's about 8 pages from there. Okay. The rest of the book is rules, battle scenarios, campaign examples, and unit stat lines. Okay. The rules cover all the existing models in the range, and some that have even been taken out of the range. So the original Dust Tactics starter box had a couple of characters in there that you can't get anywhere else. I only know the Axis one, which is Sigrid von Thaler. I think the other one was Bazooka Joe, but I'm not sure. But those two you can't get anywhere else, but the rules for those are in here. Okay. So it's got all the rules for the Axis and Allies, but not the SSU. So be warned, if you want to start an SSU army, you will need to get this book as well as the Operation Sverograd book. But those campaign books are also going to be useful for everyone else because it has the campaign in there, it's got extra rules in there, it's got rules for new units, and I'm sure that new campaign books will have rules for the armies that you play as well. So, the actual idea of Fantasy Flight Games is that they are going to release new units to all factions simultaneously. So every time there's a new release, each faction will get at least one new unit as well. And I think that's quite cool. I've seen a lot of companies working that way. So Privateer Press do that, Rackham used to do that, and so in fact did Mongoose Publishing, and it worked for them to an extent. So I'd like to see how Fantasy Flight Games manage with it, because I've noticed it can be quite hard for people to do. But yeah, so at the moment the only things for Dust Warfare are the rulebook and the soon to come Operation Sverograd campaign book. So that's all from me for video 1 of this review, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like it, press the like button. If you want to leave a comment, if you want to ask some questions about this, do ask a question. I might refer you to another video, but feel free to ask anyway. Okay. If you want to hit the subscribe button, because I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff on Dust Warfare, Dust Tactics, and the Dust Models range, please do leave some. Please do hit the subscribe button. Leave some comments on my channel. Send me private messages. Whatever you need to do, just let me know. Cheers for watching, guys. Bye bye.